Have you ever felt truly invisible, poured your heart and soul into something, only for your efforts to be swept aside, reduced to a footnote while others basked in the spotlight? Have you known the sting of being underestimated, dismissed as merely a cog in a machine, when deep inside you knew you held the key to its very success? It's a silent battle many of us fight, a whisper of injustice that echoes in the quiet corners of our minds. But what if that very dismissal, that hollow recognition, became not an ending, but a forging fire? What if being overlooked was the very catalyst that revealed your true, undeniable worth? In the bustling heart of Stuttgart, where ambition often wore a sharp suit and a confident smile, Lena Tran, at just 29, was often the quiet hum in the background, a project coordinator who blended into the efficient machinery of her department. Her days were a tapestry of meticulous planning, late-night revisions, and the relentless pursuit of perfection. Her current endeavor was a high-stakes campaign, a strategic pivot designed to yank her entire department, a vital limb of a large, venerable corporation, from the precipice of a daunting financial slump. The air in their offices had been thick with anxiety, whispers of layoffs, and the heavy weight of quarterly reports painted in dire reds. Lena, however, saw not just numbers, but patterns, not just problems, but solutions. She had immersed herself, forgotten the boundaries of her job description, working with a fervent, almost obsessive dedication that blurred the lines between day and night. Her desk was a fortress of detailed charts, projections, and innovative marketing strategies, each element meticulously crafted by her hands, her mind. Colleagues, sleek and often self-promotional, would occasionally glance at her, perhaps with a flicker of passing curiosity at her intensity, but mostly, she was just Lena, dependable, diligent, always there, but rarely truly seen. The campaign itself was a complex beast, involving multiple international markets, intricate logistics, and a radical rethinking of their approach to consumer engagement. It was a project that demanded not just coordination, but visionary leadership, an innate understanding of human psychology, and an unshakable belief in the unconventional. Lena had poured all of herself into it, sacrificing weekends, foregoing social engagements, her life becoming an extension of the glowing monitor screen. She had navigated bureaucratic hurdles with quiet tenacity, convinced skeptical stakeholders with reasoned, data-driven arguments, and inspired her small, often fatigued team with her unwavering optimism. The initial projections had been grim, painting a picture of continued decline. But Lena's innovative framework, her daring proposal to pivot towards a niche demographic, initially met with raised eyebrows and polite skepticism from the senior management, had slowly, painstakingly begun to yield results. Small victories accumulated, data trends shifted, and the red on the spreadsheets began to soften, hinting at a promising recovery. The department was pulling back, not just from the brink, but towards a potential renaissance, all thanks to the quiet, determined force that was Lena Tran, the architect of their improbable comeback. Her heart swelled with a silent, profound satisfaction, a quiet pride in the tangible proof of her hard work, the blossoming success of her meticulously crafted plans. The day of the departmental recognition ceremony arrived, draped in an aura of forced festivity. Balloons bobbed mockingly above generic platters of finger food, and the air buzzed with self-congratulatory chatter. Lena stood a little apart, her gaze fixed on the stage where the department head, a man named Herr Schmidt, whose perpetually furrowed brow now seemed miraculously smoothed, beamed with a practiced, benevolent air. He spoke of collective effort, of overcoming adversity, of the power of synergy. As the names were called, a parade of the department favorites, individuals whose contributions, while present, seemed to Lena disproportionately lauded, ascended the stage. Their faces lit up with the flash of cameras as they received envelopes stuffed with hefty bonuses and promotions to coveted senior roles. There was Marcus, whose charismatic presentations often masked a lack of substantive input, now a senior marketing manager. And then there was Anna, whose networking skills outshone her strategic acumen, now elevated to head of client relations. Each announcement was met with enthusiastic applause, a chorus of back-patting and prearranged smiles. Lena watched, a quiet observer, her heart beating a steady rhythm against her ribs. She felt a strange mix of anticipation and a familiar, quiet apprehension. When her name was finally called, it was almost an afterthought, a quick, mumbled addition at the very end of the list. And for her tireless participation and team spirit, we recognize Lena Tron, Herr Schmidt announced, his eyes already scanning the room for the next person to schmooze. There was no envelope, no mention of the campaign's astounding success, no acknowledgement of the countless hours, the innovative strategies, the sheer intellectual labor she had poured into resurrecting their financial fortunes. Instead, she was handed a flimsy, mass-produced certificate adorned with a generic design of interlocking gears and a bland corporate motto. Participation and team spirit. The words seemed to mock her, a hollow echo in the cavernous room. It was a participation trophy, a token gesture, a clear signal that her substantial, singular achievement had been diluted, absorbed, and then conveniently reattributed to the amorphous concept of team spirit, a spirit that conveniently overlooked the actual spirit and ingenuity of its most crucial member. Her colleagues, the very ones she had quietly steered through the crisis, offered polite, fleeting claps, their gazes already drifting back to the champagne flutes and the promise of future career advancements. A familiar pang of invisibility, sharp and cold, pierced through her. It wasn't the first time she had experienced such a slight, but this one felt particularly egregious, a blatant erasure of her very real, very quantifiable impact. The certificate felt like a slap, not just on her face, but on her very ambition, her talent, her undeniable worth. She gripped the thin paper, her knuckles white, and managed a small, tight smile, a mask to hide the storm brewing within. The injustice was clear, almost laughably cruel. Yet, something in her resolute spirit refused to shatter. This wasn't the end. It was, she realized with a sudden, sharp clarity, just the beginning of a different kind of fight. Lena retreated into the quiet sanctuary of her small, neat apartment that evening, the flimsy certificate placed deliberately on her kitchen table, its blandness glaring under the harsh overhead light. She didn't rage, didn't cry, didn't even allow herself the luxury of despair. Her reaction was a deeper, more profound form of resolve. Her hands, usually deft and quick, moved slowly as she began to unpack the events of the day, not with anger, but with a surgical precision of thought. Protest? What would that achieve? A raised voice might secure a moment of attention, perhaps even a cursory apology, but it would not alter the fundamental perception of her, the systemic dismissal that underpinned her entire professional experience within that department. It would not rewrite the narrative of her contribution in the minds of those who held the levers of power. No, protest was for those who still believed in the fairness of the game as it was played. Lena understood a different truth. When the game was rigged, one did not complain about the rules. One changed the game entirely. Her mind, so accustomed to strategic problem-solving, shifted gears. She picked up the certificate again, tracing the generic corporate logo with her finger. Participation and team spirit. A wry, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. This wasn't a failure. It was a gift, a perfect distillation of their blindness, a tangible symbol of their underestimation. And it was precisely what she needed to fuel her next move. A profound stillness settled over her. This wasn't about bitterness, it was about undeniable proof. It was about taking back her narrative, her achievement, and presenting it in a way that could not be ignored, diluted, or reattributed. The entire project was hers, conceptually, strategically, executively. Every breakthrough, every recovery, every positive shift in the department's financial health bore her indelible signature. She knew the intricacies, the subtle nuances, the hidden strengths and weaknesses of the strategy better than anyone else in that building. A flicker of an idea, initially a faint spark, began to glow brighter, feeding on her quiet determination. The company had a national innovation program, a prestigious initiative designed to unearth and champion groundbreaking ideas from within its ranks, often spearheaded by individuals. It operated outside the usual departmental hierarchies, its evaluation process stringent and impartial, focused solely on merit and potential impact. It was a long shot, a venture into uncharted territory for someone in her position, but it was a path that bypassed the very gatekeepers who had dismissed her. Her decision, once made, was absolute. She would revise the entire project, not for her department, not for Herr Schmidt, but for herself, for the sheer, unadulterated excellence of it. She would strip away the corporate jargon, refine the data, enhance the projections, and present it as a singular, comprehensive vision. This wasn't about revenge, it was about justice. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet, undeniable kind, proven by results. The next few weeks became a blur of silent, intense focus. Lena's apartment transformed into a clandestine war room. The glowing screen of her laptop became her constant companion, its light often the only illumination in the pre-dawn hours. She started from scratch, meticulously disassembling the successful campaign and then reassembling it, not as a departmental triumph, but as her magnum opus. Every graph, every projection, every piece of market analysis was scrutinized, refined, and elevated. She deepened the research, identified emerging trends that even the initial success hadn't fully captured, and wove them into an even more compelling, forward-looking strategic framework. Her work was no longer about coordinating, it was about innovating, about pushing the boundaries of what was possible, about laying bare the full scope of her vision. She remembered the early, dismissive remarks about her unconventional approach, the polite smiles that masked skepticism. Now, she had the data, the irrefutable proof of concept. She fortified her arguments with an undeniable array of facts and figures, forecasting not just recovery, but exponential growth. She didn't just present a strategy, she presented a blueprint for the future, a testament to her unique blend of analytical rigor and creative foresight. The process was grueling, isolating. She existed in a world of complex spreadsheets, dense reports, and the relentless hum of her own thoughts. Her colleagues, oblivious, continued their routines, chattering about their promotions, their bonuses, their new, elevated status. They saw Lena, still at her desk, still diligent, still quiet, and likely assumed she was simply maintaining the status quo. Performing the duties of her project coordinator role with characteristic understated efficiency. They saw what they expected to see, a shadow, not the burgeoning force of nature she was becoming. This dramatic irony was not lost on Lena. It fueled her, adding a layer of quiet satisfaction to her intense efforts. Each late night, each forgotten meal, each moment of doubt overcome, solidified her resolve. She was not just revising a project, she was revising her own destiny. She was painstakingly carving out her own path to recognition, one driven purely by merit, unhindered by the biases and preconceptions of her immediate environment. The work wasn't just about professional advancement, it was deeply personal. It was about affirming her own self-worth, proving to herself and eventually to the world that true value resided not in the loudest voice or the most visible position, but in the profound quietude of genuine talent and relentless dedication. Her hands moved over the keyboard, transforming complex data into eloquent narratives, creating visuals that spoke volumes, arguments that were irrefutable. She was weaving a tapestry of evidence, making it impossible for anyone to look away, to dismiss, to overlook. This was her silent rebellion, her masterpiece, born from the embers of dismissal, forged in the crucible of quiet determination. The moment of truth arrived in the quiet solitude of her apartment. The clock on her laptop screen glowed well past midnight as Lena put the finishing touches on her revised project submission. She reviewed every word, every data point, every graphic with a meticulous eye, searching for any possible flaw, any weakness in her meticulously constructed argument. The document, now titled Strategic Pathways to Exponential Growth, a comprehensive innovation model, was a testament to her vision, far surpassing the original campaign's scope and potential. It was an audacious claim, a bold vision, presented with understated confidence. Her finger hovered over the Submit button for the company's National Innovation Program. A fleeting moment of apprehension, a whisper of self-doubt, flickered through her. This was it, the culmination of weeks of secret, arduous labor, a leap of faith into the unknown. If it failed, she would remain in her overlooked position, her efforts once again unrecognized, perhaps even ridiculed for her independent venture. But the thought dissolved quickly, replaced by an unshakable conviction. She had done the work. The data spoke for itself. This wasn't a gamble, it was an investment in her own undeniable capability. This program, unlike her own department, was designed to seek out hidden gems, to identify the very ingenuity that her immediate superiors had so carelessly ignored. It represented the perceptive authority figure in its purest form, an entity removed enough from internal politics to judge solely on merit. With a deep breath, Lena pressed the button. The screen flashed a confirmation message. A quiet sigh escaped her lips, a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. There was no fanfare, no congratulatory emails, no one to witness this pivotal moment in her life. It was a solitary act of defiance, a quiet declaration of self-belief. She closed her laptop, the screen going dark, plunging her small room back into soft shadows. The battle was no longer hers to fight. She had presented her case. Now, it was in the hands of others. A different set of eyes, hopefully, a more discerning one. The stillness of the night enveloped her, a calm after the storm of intense creative energy. The next morning, she arrived at the office, resuming her duties as project coordinator with the same quiet efficiency, her face revealing nothing of the strategic chess move she had just made. Her colleagues remained blissfully unaware, caught up in their own professional ascensions, their conversations peppered with the jargon of their new, elevated statuses. Lena moved among them, a silent sentinel, her heart a drum of anticipation, a secret hope simmering beneath her calm exterior. The waiting had begun, a period of silent suspense, each day a slow tick of the clock towards an unknown future. The weeks that followed were a testament to Lena's unwavering composure. Outwardly, nothing changed. She continued her duties as project coordinator with the same quiet diligence, her movements precise, her demeanor unfailingly professional. She attended meetings, delivered reports, and coordinated tasks, never once betraying the simmering anticipation beneath her calm exterior. Her colleagues, still basking in the glow of their recent promotions and bonuses, remained oblivious. Their conversations revolved around their new responsibilities, their expanded teams, the perks of their elevated status. They would occasionally glance at Lena, still working late, still meticulously organized, and a faint, almost pitying smile might cross their faces, as if she were a relic of a bygone era, content in her overlooked position. The dramatic irony was palpable, a silent current running beneath the surface of their daily interactions. They saw her, but they did not truly see her. They were blind to the quiet storm she had unleashed, the seeds of change she had sown. Each morning, Lena would check her emails with a practiced nonchalance, her heart giving a little flutter as she scanned the inbox. No news. Each afternoon, she would discreetly check the company intranet, searching for any announcement from the National Innovation Program. Nothing. The tension was a subtle, persistent hum, a background noise to her otherwise routine days. She reminded herself of the rigorous evaluation process, the multiple layers of review, the sheer volume of submissions the program likely received. Patience was not just a virtue, it was a necessity. There were moments, late at night, when doubt would creep in. Had she been foolish? Had her ambition overstepped her position? Would her independent submission be seen as audacious, perhaps even insubordinate. But then, she would mentally revisit her revised project, the sheer depth of its research, the undeniable logic of its proposals, the proven success of her initial campaign. The facts were irrefutable. Her belief in her work remained steadfast. She found solace in the quiet hum of the office late in the evenings. After everyone else had left, the only sound the soft click of her keyboard as she continued her work, preparing for any eventuality. She honed her skills, studied new market trends, ensuring she was always ready, always ahead. This waiting period became another crucible, testing her resilience, her faith in her own potential. It was a silent battle against impatience, against the urge to give in to frustration. She remembered the certificate, still sitting on her kitchen table, a constant, tangible reminder of why she had taken this leap. It wasn't just about recognition anymore. It was about validating the truth of her contribution, about shattering the ceiling of expectation that others had placed upon her. And so, Lena waited, a beacon of quiet resolve, as the wheels of her destiny slowly, inexorably, began to turn. The morning of the announcement dawned like any other, gray and unassuming. Lena was at her desk, engrossed in a spreadsheet, when an email notification pinged across the company network. It was an urgent company-wide memo from the CEO's office titled, "A Vision for the Future, New Leadership in Strategic Innovation." A collective murmur rippled through the open plan office. Colleagues leaned into their screens, some exchanging curious glances. Lena's heart gave a sudden hard thud against her ribs. This was it. She clicked open the memo, her breath catching in her throat. The words blurred for a moment, then coalesced into sharp focus. The first paragraph spoke of the National Innovation Program, its mission to identify transformative ideas, and its recent, groundbreaking discovery. The second paragraph began to name individuals, those whose submissions had truly impressed the review committee. Then, a name leaped off the screen, bold and undeniable. "We are thrilled to announce the appointment of our new strategy director, effective immediately." This pivotal role, crucial to charting the future course of our enterprise, will be filled by none other than Lena Tran. The name resonated through the quiet hum of the office like a sonic boom, unheard by most, but reverberating profoundly within Lena's own being. Her eyes scanned the next line, confirming the news that defied all expectations within her department. Miss Tran's innovative strategic model, submitted independently through the National Innovation Program, has demonstrated unparalleled potential for exponential growth and market leadership. A gasp escaped someone nearby, then another. Heads began to swivel. Whispers erupted, hushed at first, then growing in volume, carrying a mixture of disbelief, shock, and a rising tide of consternation. Marcus, the newly promoted senior marketing manager, spilled his coffee. Anna, the head of client relations, visibly paled, her perfectly composed expression crumbling. Their eyes, wide with astonishment, darted towards Lena, who sat quietly at her desk, the light from her monitor reflecting in her serene gaze. The very position they had been quietly vying for, lobbying for, subtly undermining each other to attain, had been handed to the quiet project coordinator they had so readily dismissed. The irony was a bitter pill for them to swallow. Lena felt the weight of their collective stares, their sudden, intense scrutiny. For so long, she had been invisible. Now, she was undeniably, impossibly, seen. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips, a moment of profound, quiet triumph. It wasn't about gloating. It was about validation. It was about the undeniable power of merit, rising above prejudice, proving that true talent, no matter how quietly it worked, would ultimately find its light. The room, which had always seemed to diminish her, now suddenly felt too small for the magnitude of her achievement. The silence had broken, replaced by a cacophony of dawning realization, questions, and stunned disbelief. Lena, however, simply closed the memo, her eyes fixed on the path ahead, the new beginning that had just unfolded before her. The news spread like wildfire through the entire corporation. Lena Tran, the quiet project coordinator, appointed strategy director. It was a seismic shift, an unheard-of leap for someone who had been so conspicuously low in the hierarchical pecking order of her department. Herr Schmidt, her former department head, was summoned to the CEO's office, his face a mask of bewildered shock and thinly veiled frustration. He had to account for his blatant oversight, the talent he had allowed to languish, the genius he had failed to recognize and reward. In the open plan office, the atmosphere was thick with a mixture of awe and resentment. Marcus, still reeling from the shock, approached Lena's desk, his usual swagger replaced by an awkward stiffness. Lena, I don't understand. The innovation program? You submitted something, independently? His voice was laced with an incredulity that bordered on accusation. Lena looked up, her expression calm and unreadable. Yes, Marcus, I did. Her voice was soft, but carried a new, undeniable authority. She didn't elaborate, didn't offer explanations or justifications. Her success was the only explanation needed. Anna, not far behind him, her face a storm of conflicting emotions, managed to stammer. But, we thought, we all worked so hard on that campaign. It was a team effort. The hypocrisy in her voice was almost comical. Lena met her gaze, a faint, knowing glint in her eyes. Indeed, Anna, team spirit is invaluable. And I believe my new role will allow me to foster an environment where every individual's contribution is truly recognized and valued for its unique impact. It was a subtle, yet powerful, rebuke, delivered with grace and conviction. The realization of her true worth, now undeniable and publicly acknowledged, hit them with the force of a physical blow. Their promotions, their bonuses, their carefully constructed narratives of self-importance, all suddenly seemed hollow, dwarfed by Lena's singular, earned triumph. They were the cynical gatekeepers personified, their self-serving blindness exposed for all to see. Lena, the hidden gem, was now undeniably the perceptive authority figure's chosen leader. The CEO, a sharp and discerning woman named Elena Rostova, had not only recognized Lena's talent, but had implicitly condemned the departmental culture that had suppressed it. She had seen beyond the superficial, beyond the loud voices and the self-promoters, to the quiet brilliance that was Lena Tran. Lena's new office was on a higher floor, a corner suite bathed in natural light, offering a sweeping view of the Stuttgart skyline. It was a stark contrast to her old, cramped cubicle, a potent symbol of her ascent. As she walked through the office, her head held high, the hushed whispers and astonished glances no longer felt like judgment, but a recognition of a truth finally revealed. She wasn't just Lena, the project coordinator. She was Lena Tran, the strategy director, a testament to what happens when true merit is finally seen and celebrated. Her journey from obscurity to empowerment was complete, and she was ready to ignite that same potential in others. The first thing Lena did upon entering her expansive new corner office, before even sitting at her gleaming new desk, was to reach into her briefcase. With deliberate, almost ceremonial care, she pulled out the infamous Participation and Team Spirit certificate. It was the same flimsy piece of paper, its generic design and bland corporate motto mocking her efforts just weeks ago. But now it shimmered with a new meaning, imbued with a powerful, almost sacred significance. She didn't tear it, didn't discard it in a symbolic act of defiance. Instead, she took it to the local framer, requesting the finest, simplest frame, allowing the unassuming paper to command attention. The following day, with the framed certificate in hand, she returned to her new office. She paused, surveying the vast space, the glass walls that overlooked the city, the sleek, minimalist furniture. This was a testament to her vision, her relentless work, her refusal to be defined by others' limitations. Then, with a quiet strength, she walked over to the prominent wall directly behind her new director's chair. This was the wall visible to anyone who entered her office, the wall that would be in the background of any video call, any press interview. With a steady hand, she hung the framed certificate, perfectly centered. The words, participation and team spirit, now seemed to resonate with a profound, ironic power. It was no longer a symbol of her dismissal, but a permanent, visual reminder of the journey she had undertaken, the very catalyst that had propelled her to this new height. It was a silent, unyielding declaration, a reminder to herself, first and foremost, that true worth cannot be diminished by shallow recognition. A reminder to any visitor, any colleague, any superior who might enter her domain that the quiet, overlooked individual might possess the very genius that leadership often misses. It was a monument to underestimation, a trophy of resilience, and a beacon for the power of the hidden gem. It was a daily prompt to remember the sting of being overlooked, ensuring that she, in her new position of authority, would never make the same mistake. This framed certificate was not just a piece of paper, it was the embodiment of her narrative, a tangible representation of her underdog to hero arc. It stood as a silent witness to the dramatic irony of her triumph, a constant echo of the path that led her from the overlooked cubicle to the corner office. And in its quiet presence, it declared, without a single word, that true success is not found in the accolades you receive, but in the unwavering belief in your own, inherent value, even when no one else sees it. Lena Tran embraced her new role as strategy director with the same quiet determination that had defined her entire journey. She wasn't a sudden, flamboyant leader, she was a thoughtful, observant one. Her first initiatives focused not on grand, sweeping changes, but on cultivating an environment where talent, regardless of rank or prior recognition, could flourish. She established mentorship programs for junior employees, created new channels for independent innovation submissions within departments, and, most importantly, made it a point to genuinely listen, truly see the quiet voices in the room. Her department, the one she had saved and then subtly departed from, watched her ascent with a mixture of continued awe and a dawning understanding. Marcus and Anna, initially resentful, slowly began to grasp the depth of their own misjudgment. They saw Lena not as a competitor, but as an example, a living embodiment of what true merit could achieve when coupled with relentless self-belief. They began to alter their own approaches, perhaps not entirely shedding their old habits, but certainly becoming more attuned to the contributions of their own quiet colleagues. Lena became a catalyst for positive change, not just in her immediate sphere of influence, but throughout the corporation. Her story became an internal legend, a whispered tale of the hidden gem who had defied the odds. It was a powerful narrative that slowly began to reshape the company culture, emphasizing genuine contribution over self-promotion and quiet innovation over loud, empty promises. She proved that true leadership wasn't about the biggest title or the loudest voice, but about the profound impact one individual could have when their intrinsic worth was finally seen and validated. The company, under her strategic guidance, truly began to thrive, experiencing the exponential growth her model had predicted. Lena often looked at the framed participation and team spirit certificate in her office, a subtle smile playing on her lips. It was a constant reminder, a touchstone of her past, and a compass for her future. It whispered of resilience, of silent battles won, of the undeniable truth that external validation pales in comparison to self-worth. So, what about you? Have you ever felt unseen, unheard, underestimated? Have your contributions been overlooked, your efforts dismissed as mere participation? Remember Lena. Remember that sometimes the greatest leaps forward are born not from protest but from quiet resolve, not from seeking external validation, but from an unwavering belief in your own genius. Do not let anyone else's perception define your potential. Instead, let their blindness become the very fuel that ignites your brightest fire. Share your story. Comment below with a time you transformed dismissal into destiny. And never, ever forget that the most powerful recognition, comes not from a flimsy certificate, but from the unshakable knowledge of your own undeniable worth. Go forth, and let your hidden brilliance shine.